All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. The fourth,
Fourth.
the fourth
Yes, sir.
episode of the compliance series. 15 minutes of action-packed compliance talk from our favorite compliance expert on the internet, Daniel Hirsch, with risk and compliance analytics. The guy's a genius when it comes to compliance. Um, so today we're going to talk about something that I'm kind of excited at because I don't know exactly which direction we're going to go with it, but I'm sure Daniel has an idea. We're going to talk about CPT codes, the actual codes that you use to get paid. How do you use them? Which one should we use? What's the issue? How do we make sure we're doing it right? And maybe training our team on the right way to do that so that we can be compliant. So, Daniel, I'm gonna kind of toss it over to you. Tell us what we should like. Where do you want to kick this thing off at?
All right. Well, thanks again, Adam. It's been a great few back-to-back weeks. It's been great topics. CPT codes. We're not going to go into the weeds because we'll be here literally all week if we're talking
You
about
bet.
how to use the codes, what exact codes. Also, they're constantly changing, but we're going to talk about how to stay compliant and audit ready. So we're really going to teach people the basics, and we're going to slam it into 15 minutes, which is good. Um, CPT codes, though, when you think about it, it's really one of the least favorite parts of clinical practice. Um, no one really went to school dreaming of like, what, this is going to be one of my favorite things to do. Um, it's it's one of the most risky areas of why
Mm,
people get audited, though. That's one of the biggest problems. And it's not because of like fraud or bad intent. It's really because of misunderstanding. And or maybe bad habits or outdated workflows. That's really what the problem is. So we're going to put the pedal down. We're going to go full steam ahead and talk
that's
about
what I'm talking
how
about.
to choose, right? How to choose correctly, accurately. What does audit ready actually mean for how to stay compliant, and really how to avoid mistakes. We want people to understand how to avoid mistakes, and how to really protect the practice without drowning therapists. I know you talked about this earlier with me. You don't want
Hmm.
people to be overburdened. You don't want to
Right.
drive people crazy and burn them out. You don't want to do that. So there's a lot of technology out there to help with this in 2026. And it costs, right? So you got to be willing to pay for it. But absolutely, there's great technologies to really help with CPT coding. For clarity, you got to know like what does it represent? What does CPT codes represent? Um, last week we talked about RTM and how that's really a clock control, right? You're managing the clock. CPT codes, they're not tasks, they're the representation of what your skilled services are. So
Mm,
auditors, they're not asking like, did something happen or did it not happen? They're simply saying, tell the story. So you're trying to tell the story of what was the skilled service that you provided? Was it medically necessary? And was clinical judgment used? So those are the big three to say, hey, by the way, why do I need you, right? Why do I need you, Adam? Where I could just go down the street and go get a massage therapist or something like that. Um, it has to tell the story. So from a CPT code, aka right, your billing becomes valuable. So even if the treatment itself was, you need to know, was it appropriate? Was it medically necessary that we said? Was it skilled? And did your clinical judgment, right? That's the theme that we're going to be revisiting constantly. Um, it's rare for me to walk into a clinic and see poor treatment by therapists. That's really rare. I'll say like probably twice that's ever happened to me.
hmm.
Um, therapists kind of fall into the trap of like they're very friendly, and they're very kind. They want to give away their time and energy and resources if we tell them not to. You have to be professional. And I'll also go against the compliance doom and gloom that you hear from all the respected experts out there. I believe most therapists are probably underbilling, or they're simply not trained at like a professional level to know how to ethically and accurately bill for their services. That's what I think, because you're not learning that at the DPT level. When you're coming out of school, it's just not, that's not what they're trying to teach you. They're trying to teach you how to make decisions. Um, so we'll shift into like areas of CPT coding. So you have your time-based codes. Those are definitely your hands down biggest risk. Your time-based codes, the most common problem is when people don't list the time properly, and or
Mm,
maybe the minutes don't match the codes. Sometimes they're lumping treatment together and they're not breaking that down. It's very hard to understand what's actually being provided, or maybe it's not being recorded correctly. Um, so total treatment time doesn't always equal billable time. So the auditors are saying, okay, is there a start time? Is there an end time? What's the total minutes per CPT code? They're just looking for the simple math. They're not looking for all that other wonderful stuff. Um, and again, I'm not going to talk about math with PTs. I don't want to insult anybody, but if you can quickly explain, right? So the math is, it's simply, are you performing what you're claiming to perform, and was it medically necessary? Does it actually match? Is it accurate? That's what you have to keep asking yourself. Also, with modalities, we see this a lot. When it comes to CPT code, there's a lot of confusion out there where people are billing like, you know, heat or warm up on a bike. And I'm like, is that skilled? So you have to
Mm,
describe what you're doing. Don't just bill something for the sake of billing bike as something, right? Or a neuro. You have to describe how it's medically necessary. Maybe are you educating your patient
mm-hmm,
as they're on the bike? Are you reviewing the plan of care or their home exercise? Whatever you're doing, it has to always answer the same question. Is it medically necessary? Is it skilled? Um, you're not looking at them for just an activity list because then you can go to the gym, right? If you just need an exercise list, go somewhere else. But if you're looking for skilled decision making, that's what the auditors are saying. Yes, this should be reimbursed. Why? Because it's clinically appropriate. Um, the worst is when you see like an assessment that says the patient performed X, Y, and Z.
mm,
I could care less because I already know they did that, right? I already know the flow sheet says that or the activity log. Um, so you got to say what you're observing, what adjustments did you bring to the table. You're you're not selling yourself, but you really are describing why my brain was needed in this treatment. That's what you're trying to say, not just a list. People get that wrong all the time. Also, for over documenting, that's one of the biggest areas that I beg people, please stop. If we want to know what took place and it's already there, don't rewrite it, please.
mm,
Um, templates are good. That's another area where Medicare loves to kind of give therapists a hard time. Medicare contractors are constantly saying, "Oh, you can't use templates. EMRs are making things too easy." And the truth is, identical language, visit after visit, that is a common problem. So if I kind of give like the three strike rule. If you're saying that nothing really changed in three visits, you should be worried, right? You have to be
mm,
showing progression. You have to be documenting that. And also from the coding standpoint, the notes shouldn't just look the same. And I'm not gonna go into detail about like a specific diagnosis or anything like that. But when you are looking at how you progress your average patient in a clinic, it should be a nice curve, right? It should be a nice um, graph that you can say, hey, we're making it more complex. We're using more
mm,
valuable codes in that regard. We're making it more ING friendly, right? We're doing activity based stuff instead of just reps and sets. So we don't want to have clone documentation. You definitely don't want that. Um, obviously, auditors, they're not trying to trick you, they're looking for consistency. And when it comes to how you're describing, so I can tell you, I would get into a really bad habit of probably every like 2 to 3 months, I would just be doing the same thing. Maybe I
mm,
learned something, I took a course. I've seen this many times where therapists are just, they get into the rut, right? Of, hey, I'm just billing these four codes. And that's what your billing looks like for months until all of a sudden you're like, you know what? Maybe I should consider that you know, um, 97535 or 537 or something else. Maybe I forgot about the gait training code, right? Why not?
mm,
Most half our patients are lower extremity. Maybe that's the appropriate thing to add. So something to consider where you don't really want to get into the rut of uh, doing the same thing over and over again to create a red flag for yourself. The gold of any note, though, when it comes to supporting the CPT codes, is by far the assessment. And it's only a sentence. It's not hard to do because no one could do that for you. AI is not doing it for you. Only you could actually say, and that wonderful massage therapist down the street, they're not able to provide that. Only your critical analysis in that one fantastic sentence on a note, that's what payers want to see. And by the way, if you're ever stuck in an external audit or you're trying to argue and trying to prevent recoupment of funds and something like that, that will always win the day. So you will always survive with fantastic assessments. It's not
mm.
your activity list. It's not your
Yeah.
really cool that you created. That's nice. But the assessment, that one fantastic sentence, that is really saying, hey, by the way, we needed Adam. We didn't need that other service.
Mm,
Um, when it comes to, I talked about like more words, over documenting the sets, the reps, all that nice objective data, that should be and that should live somewhere, right? So if you're attaching that nicely into your note, that's fantastic. But you need to say why the intervention was skilled. So the CPT
Mhm.
code has to say, well, why was it skilled? What functional deficits did it address? And then again, did my clinical judgment, did that apply to the service? So I guess I'll also go out on a limb here. I don't like peer-to-peer. You probably have heard peer-to-peer
Oh yeah.
reviews are part of like an audit program for compliance. The truth is they often provide very little value to a practice. A lot of times people hate doing it, and
Mm.
it's hard to convince people to give up lunch breaks. There's again so many affordable options that you could either outsource or bring in-house from a technology solution. Um, I think that's one of the biggest things. So when you have your CPT codes, I know we talked about the time codes. They are all valued differently. So you can't just tell your staff, hey, by the way, I need you to bill top three.
Mm.
Because what happens every year? We get a fee schedule and they're magically always recalibrated. Why does that happen? It's because everyone's playing the same game, right?
They're using
Everybody,
data, I would assume, right?
right. So they're saying, well, why did 97530 get reduced in value? Because all of a sudden, magically, it's being used 50% more this past year because it went up last year. Or why is
Mm.
neuro more valuable versus therapeutic exercise? So I like to just simply say, always pick the code that accurately reflects what you're doing as opposed to just chasing a dollar sign. Um, I heard a webinar from NEMR that put out saying they're surprised that people are using group code. I'm like, really? Why are you surprised? It's a fantastic code. It's not worth very much, but it's not timed. So it's something where you could say my 1 minute was worth a few dollars, okay? But you could extrapolate that to say maybe that was three people sitting there for
Mm.
that 1 minute. So it actually does become pretty valuable. And then if you document appropriately, it's one of these things where it's a great tool to have to diversify your CPT coding. I say this all the time. Don't just do the top four that everyone else is doing. Don't just keep doing the same exact thing. Don't be like me and every 2 months catch yourself and say, oh my gosh, I haven't built gait training in 4 months. Why haven't I done that? And the answer is because is it reflective of the patient sitting in front of me? And does my service actually match what I'm coding? Because we're not coders, right? We're not medical coders. We're not medical billers. We're therapists. We're trained therapists who are supposed to, again, be using the clinical judgment and the justification to support these CPT codes.
The thing that I had a lot of things that kind of popped in and popped out of my head as I heard you talk. But the one thing that I held on to is just you mentioned technology when you're there's a lot of AI tools now that are helping you formulate the sentence structure that creates that justification. Um, how do you see that tool? I would assume that that tool, if it's any good, it's going to help you have a better assessment. Fair? It'll help you have a better assessment.
I
Um,
think the future admin is going to be the click here to validate. That's got to be, you can't be a creative writer, right? We don't want English majors. We want people to be able to simply say, yes, that is what I did. And
mm,
my license is going to sign off on that.
yeah.
That's what I think the future is. Just simply say, you know what, I read that. That is what happened. Yes, I like that.
And how does the audit because so now the audit process is a little, I would assume have to be a little different because it's going to be harder to catch. Uh, it should be consistently decent across the board if AI is writing it, right? So,
I think that's where we're finally leveling the playing field, right? Because all these years we were constantly saying, well, where did you go to school? Where was your clinical affiliation? And then you were poof, magically supposed to be up to a certain level. So we're
mm,
leveling the playing field and saying everyone should be at least good, right?
mm, mm.
So I think that's what it's trying to do. And I personally, as an auditor, I can tell you I love that. I think it's really great because there's so many other things you need to be worried about. There's so many other things you need to be focused on. The patient in front of you, you're supposed to be worried about that and that progression and that management. not on how good was that sentence structure.
Totally.
That should not be the problem.
100%. 100%. Yeah, it's usually like you said, like it's not about most therapists are doing a really good job. They're just having a hard time putting it into
Translating that.
words that
Yeah,
make sense,
exactly
right?
that.
That actually captures the depth of the skill, because I'm guilty of it too. I when you teach, when you see 100 total knee patients over and over and over and over and over, you know, it can seem like you can kind of get you can normalize that experience so much that it feels like it's unskilled because they're coming in and doing quad sets, right? But
Exactly.
really, there's a neuromuscular facilitation of the quadricep muscle to stabilize the patella to create blah, 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 right? Which is the truth, but we kind of get we oversimplify what we're actually doing, and sometimes we have a hard time articulating the value there and the skill care. And that's why I think AI really helps with that. It helps you kind of continue to capture the skill.
Yeah, and if you know what, it's available, why not take the advantage?
Yeah.
I don't understand why people are saying, you know what, it's a tool. Yes, but we have a goniometer too, right? So like, why would I want to
Yeah.
eyeball when I could use a tool that does a great job?
Totally. Totally. Okay, man, real quick,
Yeah.
because I know we're right at the 15-minute mark. Give me one bullet point, like one single most important thing that a therapist should focus on to improve their documentation and justification around CPT codes. What's the one most important thing?
The number one thing for CPT coding is it's got to be, if you're doing time minutes, the minutes have to add up. So be cognizant of, you know what, if you need 8 minutes, do not bill six. You know, that ultrasound setting that's it's for some reason set to six, change it to eight because you're not going to get billed for it. If it's still clinically appropriate, be aware of what it is because we don't want to just give away our time either. It doesn't make sense. We're not here for, most of the companies that we work for, they're not pro bono. This is not just, a nonprofit organization. We're there to do a job and we want to be compensated for our time.
Love it, man. Next week, we're going to take a week off. Things got crazy. I don't remember what happened, but the following week is our last episode, right? 5 of 5. And I don't even remember what the topic is. We can leave it as a cliffhanger, but it's going to be good. Daniel, thank you for your time, and we'll
Of
see you next
course.
week. 2 weeks.
Thank you, Adam. All
Later,
right,
man.
awesome.